we find ourselves in yet another awesome field, and this is the Nikon Coolpix P100, a mid-range bridge camera from 2010. So yes, this camera launched with a price of about $500 and was attracted to mid-range consumers who didn't need an interchangeable lens camera but wanted something a bit better than a point and shoot. If you aren't familiar with bridge cameras, these are basically the bridge between a point and shoot and a DSLR. Personally, I find them just pointless and basically just a point and shoot but more cumbersome, but that's me. It has a 10.3 megapixel sensor and was the first Nikon camera to be able to record 1080p Full HD, which was something a bit strange to include on a camera like this, but as you can imagine, very welcomed. In addition, this could shoot 60 FPS 720p, 120 frames per second 480p, and even 240 FPS 240p, which was a bit insane. The design of this camera is smaller than most DSLRs are. On the front we have our non-interchangeable lens, our zoom in shutter buttons, our power button, our mode dial selector, our flash pop-up, and a microphone array. On the back, things stay pretty simple. We have a D-pad, our view photos option, delete button, menu option, our screen which can fold out a bit but doesn't fully articulate, our EVF, and our option to switch between the EVF and the LCD screen. We also have this dedicated movie button, and this little switch switches between our regular speed video and our slow motion video. And one feature that does make this more bridge than normal is this little selector over here to adjust your aperture and whatnot, which is a feature usually found on DSLRs. This camera was released just before SDXC, which means it only supports SD cards up to 32 gigabytes, but that's fine considering the bit rates of this camera. However, like in my last video, we obviously can't be standing in a field forever, so let's go find some things to shoot.
Also, I just found this really beautiful orange fox and I got some up close photos of it, but yeah, I think this can be an opportunity to test out the zoom of this camera.
There are definitely some things I'm noticing about this camera almost immediately. First of all is that the articulating screen is actually pretty freaking good for most shots. Second of all, the autofocus is better than I thought it'd be, but of course it's no dual pixel. I'm also noticing that this camera is like slow. Like really slow to do basically anything. It's slow to view your photos, it's slow to turn on, it's slow to take photos and start videos. So like, this is definitely not a sports photographer's camera. And the last thing is, I'm noticing how much I miss actual optical image stabilization, because this camera does not have it. It has digital image stabilization, but it's garbage, which means that I'm not getting very stable shots. And I have to use this entire tripod to try and balance them. Oh goodness, okay, so we're back in the field we started with. I walked a few miles, I took some photos and stuff. And man, I don't know. After seeing that box, I kind of just like forgot about half the review. So now we're back here, but it's like super smoky outside and it's also like 100 degrees. Super hot. But I do have a few final words on this camera to kind of wrap things up. Even though I haven't seen any of the photos yet, I can, you know, judge a little bit on this LCD. And I think it's that this camera is mostly pointless. Seriously, unless you're looking for a super zoom camera like the Nikon P100, you aren't gonna want something like this, to be honest. You're better off with a point and shoot. But with that said, for what this camera is, I can't really fault it too much. This camera looks fancier than your average point and shoot, isn't quite as expensive as a DSLR, and especially for being a budget camera back in the year 2010, this has held up surprisingly well. The manual controls are fairly easy to understand, and I can see this camera being the camera that gets another consumer to buy a DSLR a few years in the future, which actually could be the purpose of a bridge camera like this. And to be honest, I'm just looking at the videos from the screen and they don't look a whole lot better than, say, my Canon Vixia. I'm not about to pretend that this was supposed to be some sort of cinema beast. It was supposed to be 1080p, and 1080p can be a resolution in a webcam or in a ARRI Alexa Classic. It's just a resolution. The sensor in this thing is small. I don't even think it's 1 inch. And it's not boasting a whole lot of dynamic range, and it doesn't do a whole lot better in low light. However, what this camera was a consumer camera from 11 years ago, and these cameras go for $60 on eBay. That's very cheap for a camera as capable as this one. Seriously, I was browsing eBay for 1080p cameras that could potentially be a B camera, and this was one of them. Just the first 1080p camera they made. It's pretty affordable. But now I think is the question, should you buy this? If you are looking for a bridge camera, if you are looking for something that's not quite so expensive as most DSLRs are, should you buy this? No. Like I said earlier, you're better off getting some kind of point and shoot, or heck, even just a cheaper DSLR. It won't have 1080p video recording most likely. No DSLRs under $100 do. But what they will usually have is better photos than this thing will ever be able to reproduce. If you're looking for something aimed at video, you really should just get a used Canon Vixia for under $100 on eBay. Just a dedicated video machine. I was using one up until 2018. However, this isn't to bash owners who might own a bridge camera like this, or are even looking for one, because this isn't a bad camera. This is a camera that takes acceptable photos in my view, and records video pretty decently considering its age. If you're looking at a bridge camera, you're getting a deal on one, or if a relative is just giving this away, like I got this from my family, then you can just take it. There's no reason you should get rid of it if you're the type of person who would use this. But with that said, I've used this camera for the majority of the day. I think it's pretty awesome. For its novelty at the time, for its capabilities even now, for the price that these things go for. I mean, this thing is basically a relic and not many people know about it. I mean, everybody knows about the Canon 5D Mark II, Canon's first 1080p camera, but this doesn't get nearly the same love, and that's kind of unfortunate. But anyways, this has been Calc G, and I'll see you guys in the next one.